How's things in Florida?
31st of January, Rabbi Levitt, Gemora.
But here the rabbi strengthened the husband's lien through the enactment of Usha, so it cannot be broken through emancipation. A third alternative, and if you prefer, Vayehiva is Amar, say Dechuli Alama Lahu Lahani Tinai Tilkana Usha. That everybody agrees that those to name do not subscribe to the enactment of Usha. Vahacha Vikniyan Pirus Kinyan, yeah. Haguf Deme Kamif Lago, and here they disagree as to whether the ownership of the rights to the produce of the property is tantamount to ownership of the property essence. So the Gemara presents a similar dispute over Tanya, and they disagree about the same issue that is a dispute in the following to name. The Tanya, for it is taught in a brisa, it would come Hamacha Achara Laha. If one sells his Canaanite slaves to another, Ufakos, Uvasok, Amo al Manas, Shenu, Shalishim, Yom. And the seller stipulates with the buyer that the slave should continue to serve him for 30 days. Ravi Meir Omar, Rishon Yishanu Bedin Yom or Yomim. The Rabbi Meir says that the first one, that is the original owner, is subject to the rule of a day or two if he should strike the slave and cause his death. Mipanei Shahu Takato, because the slave is still under his authority. The Gemara interrupts the brisa to explain Reb Meir's view. Kosovo, Reb Meir maintains Kinyan Baros, Kinyan Haguf Dami, that the ownership of the rights to the produce of a property is tantamount to the ownership of the property's essence. And then the brisa continues. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Rabbi Yehuda says, Yom or Yomim. Shani Yishno Bedin, Yom or Yomim. The second owner is subject to the rule of a day or two. Mipanei Shahu Kaspo, because the slave is his property. The Gemara explains Yehuda's view. Kosovo, Yehuda maintains Kinyan Hiros Le Kipaniyan Haguf Lamei, that ownership of the rights to the produce of a property is not tantamount to the ownership of the property's essence. And then the brisa continues. Yet Reb Yosef says, do I do that too or not? No.
Let's see if we could do the
other
Rashi's up until this point. And the first Rashi in this section is Hamocher Avdo. Phil, you see that Rashi?
Wait a second. The mocher of the quote. It should be in the top somewhere.
They're like in the middle.
Not to the middle already.
In the
Okay,
middle of the
Mocher
Rashi. Yeah.
The three-word Rashi.
Yeah.
He sells his servant. Ovid Kanani La'acher. The Ovid Kanani to another person. He's selling his Ovid Kanani to a different person.
Okay. Right. And yeah, take the next one also then, please.
The next one in Pisak. Now, Pisak is like a rule. Hamocher im halokeach, the seller together with the purchaser. Almanas, he made a condition. Sheyishum shu o shloshim yom, that he can use them for 30 days. That he can serve him for 30 days. It's a 30-day sale, so to speak. He's like, I guess he's selling it to the other guy, but the condition that I still can use it for 30 days. It's kind of like with the people with the apartment. You know, they rent the apartment, but you got to give me rights to use it for these 30 days.
Right. So really, he just has he doesn't. It seems like he doesn't really own the Eved even for those 30 days. He just owns the right to the Eved's work and his service for the first 30 days. He's taking that back to himself. But the sale that he sold the Eved to a buyer is would appear to even be in effect from day one. So that's the case over here. And now we're basically presented with a case where it would seem that the way we would analyze it is we would say that the buyer has the Kinyan goof in the Eved. The Eved is konoi, is acquired to the buyer. He has the Kinyan goof. And what does the seller have? The seller has a temporary Kinyan peros. For 30 days, he is the owner of the peros, of the productivity and the service of the Eved. And so like that, the Brisa said that we're presented with a question of what is the din in this case? Do we say Kinyan peros is Kinyan haguf? Do we say that the fact that for these first 30 days, the fact that the seller has the right to the service of the Eved, do we say that means that also for the first 30 days he's regarded as a owner of the body of the Eved as well? So sort of like a sort of like a partner together with the buyer. Now, and the nafkamina over here, the practical halachic ramification of whether we say kinyan peros or kinyan guf here is going to be in regard to this din that the Brisa quotes over here, that the din of yoma yomayim, 1 day or 2 days. And Rashi is now going to tell us, hopefully, he's going to explain us a little bit about that, what that din is. So, Phil, would you like to continue? I don't see Lou around.
Okay. Continuing Yom. Rashi's getting longer now. We shown Yishnu the din Yom or Yomayim. That's the first. It's taught that it has the it's taught of the rule, the din, that it's either a day or 2 days. Okay, so now if we hit this slave within 30 days. Elu below mace. Within these 30 days, and he doesn't die, Tachat Yado, under his hand, Ella rather Amad Yom or Yamayim, rather he was standing there, he was with him 1 or 2 days, Chai living, he lived for 1 or 2 days of those. Einu Neherag, it's not considered that he murdered him. If he was able to withstand living a 1 or 2 of days in that period. Succeed, because it's written, Af if Yom, just if a day or Yamayim, 1 day or 2 days, and so on. So this is a pasuk in Shmos, Kaf Aleph. About Shnei, but it teaches, repeats, if he does hit him within these 30 days, Shehoyo B'bayit Rishon, that would be in the first house. Eino B'din, it's not the law, Yom Yomayim. It's not the rule of 1 or 2 days. The Neherag, Allah, and he's killed him. A filu mace, even though Mecholi's, even if he died because of this illness, the sof shloshim, within at the end of those 30 days.
3
3 days. At the end of 3 days.
3 years.
The kinyan payros is the kinyan of owning the benefits of the fruits of the labor. Shu kinyan was shown, and that's the first kinyan he made. The kinyan a goat, that dummy would be considered like the acquisition of the body, the ownership of the item exact. The love is the shnei, and this is not to him.
Interesting. Wow. Okay. So this is the view, what Rashi's explaining over here is the view of Rebbe Meir. The Meir was the one who said the Rishon, meaning the seller. The way the Brisa is referring to the seller and the buyer, when Rebbe Meir says the Rishon, the first one, he's referring to the mocher. He's referring to the one who owned the slave and sold it to the buyer, and the buyer is called the sheni. So according to Reb Meir says the Rishon, the buyer, I'm sorry, let's try that one again. Reb Meir says that the Rishon is the seller of the Eved. He sold the Eved, but he reserved to himself, he held back for himself the first 30 days of the sale, that the service that the Eved is obligated to continue to serve him. He has the right to the service for 30 days of the Eved, even though he sold the Eved to the buyer. So he's called the Rishon. And Reb Meir says that the Rishon is going to be subject to this din of Yom Yomayim. Yeshno Bedin, he has to him the din of Yom Yomayim. So, because at that time that he was hit by the Rishon, the seller, he was tachtov. He was under his authority, and he was required to serve the Rishon, the seller, for those 30 days. So if he struck and this Eved during those 30 days, so he will have the din of Yom Yomayim. Now, Rashi explained over here, what is exactly this din of Yom Yomayim? What does that mean? So Rashi explained over here, Im hiko b'toch shloshim yom alalu, v'lo meis tachas yado, ela amad Yom Yomayim, chai. If this Rishon, if this seller struck this Eved within the first 30 days, where he was the one that was entitled to the labor of the Eved during those days, below mace, and the Eved did not die, takas yado, under his hand, meaning, I guess, on the spot. Ella, rather, amad, yom yomayim chai, but he remained alive for 1 or 2 days. But then what happened to this Eved?
He died at the end.
That he died, and it's clear that the reason that he died was because of the blow that was dealt him by the seller that he was working for during these 30 days. So what does the din of Yom Yomayim say? Eino ne'erag. He is not going to be executed. Who's not going to be executed?
The guy who killed the Eved, because he was able to live for a couple of days.
He will not be executed. Diksiv, because it says in the pasuk, Im Yom Yomayim v'chulei, and if you look on the side in the Torah Or, the Torah Or says, Achib Yom Yomayim Yom Maod, if he stands for 1 or 2 days, remains alive, in other words, lo yukam. So then we don't avenge his death by, in other words, executing the person who did it. Hikaspohu, because that person that did it, that Eved was his, he had an acquisition in that Eved. Now, why did he have an acquisition in that Eved? His whole acquisition was he had a right to his service for 30 days. And so according to Reb Meir, because Reb Meir holds Kinyan Peros is Kinyan Aguf. It's tantamount to having an ownership in the goof of the Eved himself, so that it's regarded as he's the owner of the Eved on that account. And then Rashi continued about Sheni, but the buyer of the Eved, what would be the din of the buyer of the Eved if he would do the same thing to this Eved? Says Rashi. Now he's the one that paid for the Eved. He's the one that would seem to be the owner of the Eved. It's just that for these first 30 days, he allowed the seller to he's got the right to work the Eved during those first 30 days. But other than that, he's the owner of the Eved. So Rashi says, according to Reb Meir, Sheni im hiko b'toch shloshim yom halalu, if this buyer would strike the Eved during these 30 days, not after the 30 days, because after the 30 days, it's clear that he's the undisputed owner. But if he struck him during these first 30 days, when the Rishon is got the right to receive the labor of the Eved, Shahaya Babayis Rishon, at that point he's in the house of the seller, and he's serving him over there. Eino bedin yomo yomayim. This buyer, rather, the Sheni, he is not going to be subject to this leniency of Yom Yomayim, that if the Eved survives for a day or two before he passes away as a result of the blow that he suffered from this person, he's not going to be subject, he's not going to be able to get the ruling of Yom Yomayim that gets him off. And he will be executed, the Sheni. the one that bought the Eved. He will be executed in this case. Afilu meis micholi zeh l'sof shalosh shanim. Okay, why? The Kinyan Paris, Shehu Kinyan the Rishon, Ke Kinyan Aguf Dami, Balav the Shenihu. Wow. So if you would ask, who's the owner of the Eved for the first 30 days, you would say, according to Reb Meir, that the seller, he's the undisputed owner. And the Sheni is not regarded as the owner. And the proof of the pudding is that Rashi's explaining, according to Reb Meir, the Sheni, if he would do the same thing to the Eved, he would be executed. Okay. All right. Okay, so that's Rebbe Meir. And then Rebbe Yehuda comes along and he says Punk Fakert. He says exactly the opposite. He says the Sheni is the one who is the is going to have the leniency of the Yoma Yomayim. And if the Eved survives for a day or two, then the Sheni will be the one who will not be executed. And presumably, he would hold that the Rishon would be executed if he did such a thing. Because he holds the opposite of Reb Meir. He holds that Kinyan Paris is lav the Kinyan Aguf Dam. So during these first 30 days, the only one who has any Kinyan Guf in the Eved is the Sheni, is the buyer. The one that has a right to his work. It's not regarded that he's the owner at all of the Eved, and therefore only the Sheni would have the din of Yom Yomayim, because this din of Yom Yomayim, we looked it up yesterday in the Chumash, and we saw that we're talking here about the one that owns the Eved. He's called the Ish. If the Ish does this to the Eved, and the pasuk says at the end of the pasuk says Ki kaspohu, because this Eved Kanani is regarded as the property of this person. So even though if the master struck the Eved and the Eved died under his hand within the day, so then he would also be executed, the owner of the Eved, even though he owns the Eved and it's like his property, but he would nevertheless be executed. But since it's an Eved Kanani, it's regarded as the pasuk says as kaspo, as his property. There's a leniency of Yom Yomayim, but that only is a leniency for the one who owns the goof of the Eved. But anybody else is the Eved Kanani has the same din as a full-fledged Jew, that the person that murdered this Eved would be executed. Okay. Now we'd like to go on to Rebbe Yossi Omer, and Alan, would you like to continue the reading for us?
Oops, we're doing
The Rebbe Yossi can be found. I would say it's about 20 lines down. Last 3 lines of the last 3 words of the line.
more explains what we do. Misap, Kat, Yos,
Kinyan Peros. Rabbi Yossi is uncertain about ownership of the rights of produce and property. Kinyan.
Sorry, you got the paragraph above that.
Oh, okay. The Bryce resumes.
Right.
Okay. Bryce resumes. Rav Yossi Omer. Rav Yossi says, Shnehem Yesh Non Hadin Yom O Yom Mayim. Both are subject to the rule of a day or two. This one, the original owner, because the slave is under his authority, and this one, the buyer, because of the slave is his property. More explains Rabbi Yossi's view. Musafo Loya Kinyan Peros. Rabbi Yossi is uncertain about ownership of the rights of the produce of the property. Kinyan Haguf Domain, if it is tantamount to ownership of the property's essence. Law Kinyan Haguf Domain, or if it is not tantamount to ownership of the property's essence. The set pink for shows tail. Therefore, he applies the rule that when there is doubt regarding capital punishment, he leniently and exempts both the original owner and the buyer. The Bryce concludes, Rabbi Eliezer Omer, Rabbi says, Shemehem Yom Bedin Yom O Yom neither is subject to the rule of a day or two. Well, this one, the buyer, because the slave is not under his authority, and this one, the original owner, because the slave is not his property.
Okay, so good. We have 10 more minutes. Let's go further. Phil, would you like to continue the reading on my Rava?
I'm a Rava. Let me try. I'm trying to read in Gemora, not in the Russian code. I'm a Rava. We find where we're up to in the Gemora, not in the not in the Russian code, not in the Watchko, the Gemora itself. What's the first word on the line, Gemora?
Have you got the art scroll?
Yeah, but I want to look at it without the art scroll. Okay, I'm a Rava. Rava says, my time, okay, here we are. My time in the Rabbi Eliezer. What's the reason for the Eliezer? Omakra, the pasuk says, Ki kaspo, because it's his money, so to speak. It's his property. He owns it. Kaspo amiyuchad lo. It's the property that is special to him. That's what it's saying. It's his. It's only his. Miyuchad. It's set aside specifically to him. No. Come on. I'll turn the page here. Come on, Oslo. Who do we go after? The Omar and Amar. And Amar says, Ish the Isha, a man and a woman, Shemachru, Nichnasei, Malu, and then they sold their Nichnasei Malu, Lo also, the low klum. It's meaningless. It doesn't count for anything. He hasn't done anything, and it's nothing. Is Kaman Rabbi Eliezer? That's like Rabbi Eliezer. Man Tana, who's the Tana? We'll have this. The Tana Rabbana, that if it's taught in the Tana Rabbana, me Chetzev Avad, the Chetze Ben Charim, someone who has a half slave and half free person, the Chain Avad Shel Shneim, and also a servant of Shnei Tu Shutufim, of two partners, Ein Yotzim. They don't go out, the Roshei Averim, when you with the tips of their limbs, so to speak. She'enon Eino Chovrim, because they don't go back. Only Rav Mordechai, Rav Ashi said, this they said, Mishmei Rabba, in the name of Rabba, Rabbi Eliezer, he is Rabbi Eliezer. Didn't Rabbi Eliezer say, Kaspo, Hamiyuchadlo, his property that's specifically for him? Lo, Achahiyanami, here also, Avdomi Achotim, it's a servant that's specifically his.
Okay, so the Gemara was explaining what's the reasoning of Rabbi Eliezer. Now, Rabbi Eliezer, he was the one that said in the case of Yom Yomayim that both the seller and the buyer, Shneim, Einam Bedin Yom Yomayim, neither one of them would be able to avail themselves of this leniency of Yom Yomayim and escape execution. In other words, according to Rabbi Eliezer, both of them, if they struck the Eved, even if the Eved did remain alive for a day or two before he passed away from the blow, they would both the buyer and the seller would be executed, according to Rabbi Eliezer. Because he says neither one of them had full ownership interest in this Eved. One of them, the buyer, the Eved was not his property. He just had the right to receive a service for 30 days. And the buyer during those first 30 days, even though he owned the Eved, it was his property, but he wasn't required to serve the buyer for those 30 days. So both of them are deficient in their ownership, in their full ownership of the Eved. You have to have both aspects of the ownership according to Rebbe Eliezer. You have to have the aspect of kaspo, that it's his property, and also that the Eved is required to serve him for that time. And so that's what Rava said. What's the reasoning of Rabbi Eliezer? Because he learned in the words of the pasuk. It says ki kaspohu, it is his kaspohu. He is his. In other words, he, the Eved, is the who over there, and kaspo is his property, and that refers to the owner. So he has to. So he learns from these words. He kaspo hamiyuchad lo. It's his exclusive property. And so it wasn't the exclusive property of either one of them, because both of them were deficient in their ownership interest of the Eved, each one for his own reasons, as we explained. And so therefore, that's the Rava's explanation for why it is that Rabbi Eliezer says that neither one of them can avail themselves of this din of Yom or Yomayim. Okay. Oh, now what do we have any oh, but the case, come on, Ozla Hada Amar Mema Ish Isha Shemachru V'Nikse Malug. Lo also below Klum. Okay, so we have Rashi over here in the next 2 minutes. Lou, would you like to read the Rashis? Ish Isha. It's about 7 lines down from where the spread is in the Rashi. Right opposite the word masnisin in the Gemora column.
Okay. 7 lines before the spread. Ish for Isha.
That's it. You got it.
Okay. Afilu Machri Shenehem Ke'echad. So the man and his wife, even selling 2 of them like one.
Right. If in other words, if both of them, both the Ish and the Isha, got together, afilu machru shneim, even though the both of them sold the niksei malug ke'echad as one. In that case, a Maimer says lo asu below klum, that this sale is not effective at all in any way, shape, or form. Now, why is it not? You got both parties that have any interest in the niksei malug. You got the wife that owns the goof of the property. You've got the husband that owns the right to receive the profits of the property. So that's the sum total of the ownership of the property. If both of them agree to sell that property, and they both sign their name on the contract, why should it not work? We got to see what Rashi says over here. Lo asav lo klum.
She'eno lo lezeh velo lezeh. It's not. It doesn't belong to this one. It doesn't belong to the husband. It doesn't belong to the wife. V'im meis echad mehem. But if one of them dies, zeh ha nishar motzi miyadei ha likochos.
Right.
If one of them dies, then nishar is what, the other one?
Right. The one that remains,
Will
surviving one,
will take out his hand.
motzi midei halakuchos. He will take out from the
Lekuchos.
hands of the lakuchos. Yeah.
Lekuchos is the children? No,
The buyers.
The buyers.
Right. In other words, if both of them agreed to sell to the Lokeach, and then after the sale, one of them, either the wife or the husband, passed away, and now the remaining one, let's say the husband remains. He will be able to be motzi midei halakuchos. He will be able to take out that property from the buyer because he's the inheritor. He would be, I guess, no, I don't think it's because of inheritance. Maybe Rashi will explain what's his basis for being taken out from the kuchos.
It can't be inheritance because that wouldn't apply to her. She doesn't inherit him.
Right? True. Very good.
Okay.
And how
V'lo-
long afterwards? How
What?
long? What's the time limit? Is there a time limit?
Over what?
Could you do it 50 years later?
Rashi doesn't say there's any time limit.
You mean after the death, 15 minutes after the death?
Yeah, it could be a few minutes, or is it a week, or is it a decade, or what? If all of a sudden, after if my children inherit from me, and then along comes this bloke and says, "No, I'm taking him back."
Well, the point here is that they didn't do a sale.
Mm.
That's what the Gemara says, that even if both the husband and the wife would sail together as one, the Niksei Malug property to a Lokeach, so that what would happen? Rashi says if one of the two, either the husband or the wife, doesn't say which one, it doesn't matter which one. If one of them passed away, then the remaining spouse would be able to take out the property that was sold to the Lokeach. Why could he do that? Because it wasn't a good sale. The sale didn't work at all.
V'lo demo le shutfin de alma de achas that it's not equivalent to a partnership.
Right. It's not equivalent. It's not similar to the case of partners, husband and wife. In this case, they're not comparable to a case of partners that did the same thing. If they would sell to a buyer.
You know what? It's 12:36.
No.
Oh.
Okay. Take care. Be well.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Be well, everybody.
Lou, what's up for today?
Yeah, I'm gonna go. Mitzvah Hashem.